write about. Trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist. Am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know.
That was the great sounds of Watson with Outside on WNHHL Team 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, with my partner in crime, Long Island raised, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. EZ BlueZ, you are better with introductions more than me. Who do we have with us today on Behind the Brand?
Ladies and gentlemen, throughout all of time, there is always this incredible personality. There is what I like to call the seers, the people that can 100% see what is going on and have the true understanding and exactly how many levels things need to click. These people are very few and far between, and when you find one, have long conversations that you forget to record, because I'm telling you, you're going to be pushed to levels in which you didn't even know. Now, of course, we have had this man on our show before, whether it has been making incredible coffee concoctions, whether it be making sure you are connecting with the right tabletop game to truly feed your soul and socialize, whether it be to stand up when the rest of the world tells you to sit down because it's the right thing to do, or whether it be taking elements from the past, refurbishing them, and making them beauty of the future. This is the man you want to have a conversation with. So I want to put your hands together. Not if you're driving, you keep your hands at 10 and 2. There will be no accidents. But mentally, let's put our hands together and just collectively hug this man for the amazingness that he is. Nate Blair, what's up, brother?
Thank you. If I was white, I'd be blushing right now.
It's all right. I'm red enough for both of us.
Thank you. What an intro. That was nice.
You know, I was feeling it. You're inspiring, man, and that's the key, and that's really like sans whatever business thing you are into. Like, I actually appreciate you on the human being level. You know, and you know, and I want people to connect with that, because you have always been there. You have always been through those different aspects, and I'm always excited to hear what the next adventure is. Whether, I mean, there was cider at one point, right?
What's going on with
cider?
Oh my God!
Is there still cider?
So last fall, I took a break. I did cider for a few years. Last fall, I honestly didn't have a location to really appropriately do the cider making. That being the case, cider ages rather well. And so I cracked open some of my older cider, and it's absolutely delicious. That is to say that, like, I'll probably be doing cider this fall. I did get a cider press. I don't know if I said that the last time. But yeah, basically I got a cider press. I got a grinder to mash it all up. Again, sort of going with my sort of least impact possible, trying to, use what other people may not be. I generally make the cider with seconds. So like for those of you who want to make some hard cider with your own apples, if you go to like a farmer's market or the orchard or something like that, they'll have apple seconds, which are like ding and dent apples, like with like ground spots, or they've hit the ground, whatever. And yeah, they don't look great, but you're turning them into juice, so it really doesn't matter. And in that respect, it's a great way to get a lot of apples for a lot less money. So also, if you're making apple pies or something like that, the only thing I'd be mindful of is that those brown spots in the context of an apple pie is a textural difference that you might want to cut out. But yeah, no, I took a break this past fall. I would say also not only lack of space, but I have started to sell secondhand clothes a lot more. I don't know if I talked about that at all in the past, but basically these days I sell vintage clothes as my main source of income. Still work at Elm City Games, doing tabletop games and whatnot. And I also mend clothes with like traditional sort of Japanese style hand stitching, and a sewing machine. And that actually has been really good to me for all sorts of reasons. But yeah, once again, kind of correlating with my do least amount of harm possible of taking secondhand clothes that would otherwise go to waste and trying to give them a new life by repairing them. And if they're perfectly fine, just, keeping them in the market rather than having to flood the market with new stuff.
Young entrepreneur we have here.
Oh yeah, no, a hardcore entrepreneur. And now, when you say you take the clothes and do you like say go for a shop through one of the secondhand stores, or do you have a donation site? So
yeah, I go to Goodwill. I go to the Goodwill outlet. It's on State. Hide that from it. Oh, excuse me. I'm not going to hide that from anybody. But yeah, the outlet on State Street, it's really inexpensive. The clothes are just piled up. You just dig through it. I have to say, it's extremely overwhelming to go there for the first few times that you go. At the same time, it is one of the most beautiful slices of America that you can see in this area. Like, there's 5 languages always spoken at the bins. It's unbelievable. You'll see 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, not all the way to like 75-year-olds. Like the whole breadth of the American experience. People pull up in brand spanking new Audis and Teslas. People pull up in cars like mine. In that respect, it's an unbelievable melting pot. And so for like no other reason, like, yes, go there and get your secondhand clothes. That is the best place. But if you want an experience right here in your backyard, go to the Goodwill outlet store. It's it's remarkable.
Well, it's interesting because you, in your definition of the whole thing, kind of changed the direction that I was going with the question. Because initially I was going to say, hey, with the least amount of impact, is there a way that people can donate directly to you? They're going through their spring cleaning aspects and stuff like that. But that experience that you're talking about, to me, I don't want to get rid of the middle person, because that middle person is an amazing experience, and I don't want to rob you of that in your life. So forget my last question and let's move forward.
Well, so, I mean, also the truth is, respectfully, like, if people started donating clothes to me, I would have 100 times more clothes than I could ever do anything with. And also, respectfully, it's like I'm trying to select particular things versus, I don't want to say to somebody who gives me like 3 50-pound trash bags worth of their clothes, I won't sell any of it. That's like, and so, and it's not that is factual. I haven't seen clothes, but I don't know. I can't, so it could well be that I just took on 150 pounds of stuff that I need to turn around and donate now.
Right.
And so a big part of the learning process in the context of selling secondhand clothes is my overconsumption, is learning for me to actually take on less, because it's very easy. America, we all have new shirts every single year. So, in that respect, we just are inundated with secondhand clothes. Just so many, that if you open the door a little bit, like tons just start coming in. And so like, it's the kind of thing where, so the way in which I entered selling secondhand clothes was from the angle of me trying to express myself creatively, and that being a way in which I could sort of monetarily sustain myself. So like the creative expression was me working on clothing. Let's see, like, so like this, for example, is something it's going to be hard to see in this. So I'm just going to put it on. But basically, like there are certain things I've wanted to make fashion wise for a very long time. And like one day I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And so part of that involved like getting materials from Goodwill. And so that is how my Goodwill journey started, because I didn't want to use new materials. And so like, because of COVID, I had some time to work on very small projects, which i.e. like making masks, which allowed me to in turn like get more comfortable with the sewing machine and work on more projects. And so as I started to work on more projects, spent more time at Goodwill, found more clothes, and I'm like, oh, meanwhile, my roommate is selling clothes online, and I'm like, oh, I could do some of that, like while I'm here. And so like cut forward to now, and like I go to Goodwill 5 days a week, mostly to pick up clothes to sell at my pop-ups. So I don't really sell online anymore. I pop up in a few locations. My main spot is in front of Coffee on Audubon Street every Saturday from around like 11 to 5. And then in front of Elm City Games every Thursday, but that's only when they have the street blocked off. And so now I do that, and like I feel like that's birthed a whole nother world of interest for myself, where like I now have not simply an interest in terms of making certain things that I've wanted to make for a while, but like I think a much deeper appreciation for fashion than I did before I started doing this, and a much deeper appreciation for history. Like I love history, and so like seeing American history and world history as told through clothes is fascinating. Seeing cultural trends is fascinating. So like right now I have like 3 or 4 collections that I'm working on that tell stories. And so one of those stories is the political left to the political right. And through the story of clothing. And so like I think, for example, like politically conservative stuff from 20 years ago, it's very different than political stuff, like politically conservative stuff now. Some of it's the same, some of it's different. You know, like it's amazing how these things have evolved and changed. Or another collection I have, I call it my Black Excellence collection. And so it is sort of the story of Black pride and just sort of Black identity through, I think the oldest article I have is from like the 60s, from mid 60s to today. And just, how that story has evolved and changed and like swelled and deflated. And so like, for example, one thing that I've come to learn just from collecting clothes in a more concrete way is the Black Power movement by the year 2000 did not exist. And did not exist until Obama was elected again, or elected in 08. Like the time between the year 2000 and 2008, Black excellence didn't exist. Like there were some Essence Fest, like if there's like some Essence Fest t-shirts, there's like a couple t-shirts from like some festivals, but like there isn't like Black is beautiful. There isn't like these Black leaders, or like, you know, none of that was considered cool. None of that was considered current or relevant. Like the black leaders who were explicitly so were not, they didn't matter, you know, not in a way where someone would wear a t-shirt. And it's like,
wow,
go back like literally, you know, 10 years earlier, like 1990, you have all sorts of black power, black excellence.
Yeah, you got cross culture.
Yeah.
The whole clothing line. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And so like in a pivot, you could say, oh, like who were the black leaders at the time? Who were the faces that were black at the time? And we're talking about like Kobe Bryant, we're talking about Jay-Z, we're talking about capitalists, we're talking about athletes, you know, but like their racial identity was like it mattered in that they were representation in a larger group, but we don't talk about race anymore. We're like past that, you know.
Right.
Don't bring, you know. And so it's just very interesting how yeah, literally there's like just a huge gap. And so like that narrative through clothing is something I'm fascinated by now. You know, like yeah, again, the narrative of what how the right has evolved, and like how the right, the far right represents itself. I recently found in the past week, I found a David Duke for president.
Oh my gosh.
David Duke, former head of the Ku Klux Klan, ran for president twice.
I remember that.
And it's a shirt and it says "Run Duke Run," and it's got a stick figure with a smiley face and a guy like in a run position. And you know, 2 weeks before that, I found a Jesse Jackson for president. Like and on the back it says like Jesse Jackson for Connecticut, or Connecticut for Jesse Jackson, you know, big picture of him on the front. And it's like those things standing alone or whatever, but like they're made in the same year. You know, those two things together, like on a rack, you know, like if you're looking through and it says a little bit about each thing, I think that it could be a very compelling story and narrative, you know, that speaks on us. And it's also interesting too, because these clothes have all been given away, you know? And so there's this level in which whether it's because the person died or because the person literally no longer liked the shirt, or there's a stain on it, or literally they no longer affiliate, you know? And it's like, for whatever reason, this is a shirt they no longer have an affiliation with. And so like, I think that's also interesting because, for example, with cancel culture, people talk about whether or not cancel culture is effective or not effective. But I can't exactly speak to that. But what I can speak to is when there is a wave in cancel culture, it is reflected in the clothes that come through Goodwill. So like the Washington football team, like their old name, like for a year, it was just nonstop, you know, even the Braves, like nonstop, you know. And it's just fascinating in that respect of like the Confederate flag, like right during the Black Lives Matter movement, I was seeing tons of Confederate stuff going through Goodwill, you know, because people were done with it, you know.
Yeah, I really, wow. I mean, first and foremost, the time frame that you gave, the 2000 to 2008, I'm realizing that even around that time, that's when Viacom bought out BET. And I know the only reason why I remember that is because NSYNC released a video, and it debuted on all of the Viacom channels on the same day. And there you like here, like as odd as it is, here on BET, you have the NSYNC video debuting,
right?
And I was just like, wow, this is this is the actual truth of what it is, you know. And I saw it a little bit coming up in the 90s with grunge. Like, you know, grunge was amazing, and it fit for me because I was already going to thrift stores because I couldn't afford anything. And flannels fit a guy that's a little bit heavier and wants to go about his day. I wasn't wearing it because it was cool. I was wearing it because it was affordable. And then I saw all the cool girls in senior year rocking those flannels, and you see it show up
like
on,
I'm rocking the Behind the Brand on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime, Long Island Rays, Elm City made, EZ BlueZ is in the building. We're with our good friend Nate Blair on the show. Easy. I hope I didn't lose your train of thought. Go right ahead, my friend.
No, not at all. I think it's amazing. I'm completely blown away, and I love this conversation, and I can't wait to, when we're done with this, to go back and listen to it myself. That's like how like these people are spoiled right now, and they need to appreciate. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, they're spoiled, but still. But it's so interesting when you take that longer look. Like right now, I'm someone who, I love to watch culture. I love to see how things go, and I love to see it from an entertainment point of view, because I feel like they kind of align us to set up, you know, who the next enemy is going to be. Or like for a while, you know, I'd say 10, 15 years ago, you started to see a lot of these spy shows show up again. And who were the main bad guys in these spy shows? Russia. Who do we not like right now? Russia. I'm just saying, some things happen for a reason, you know. And then to further like build out upon it, and, you know, as you're talking, you know, to see the evolution of fashion from that political aspect. And I love how you mentioned cancel culture, because, you know, everyone complains about cancel culture, but, you know, Louis C.K. and Marilyn Manson just got Grammys.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Totally.
So it's great. I love this.
Yeah, no, just again, touching back on cancel culture, just I personally have I have no mixed feelings about canceling people. I have mixed feelings about identity politics, because I feel like in that respect, they have brought us to where we are, but I don't know if they can carry us any further. And so, like, canceling people, identity politics, those are two different things that are both conservative talking points. But I just want to say that, like, in the context of why do we, quote unquote, cancel people, or why are we advocating for particular rights, and like rights for particular people and to protect particular people, I feel like the conversation has gotten away from the core values of it, which is about loving one another and like actually coming from a place of love and coming from a place of caring. And that's a very strong position to come from. And if you're no longer coming from that position, you're actually coming from a very weak position when you start talking about identity politics, because then it becomes a purity politics of who is able to use the proper language in the proper way. And if you're not up to date, then you are a sinner, and like you shall be cast into the pit of sin. And like, I am the pure one because I know how to use this terminology in a way that isn't relevant, you know, like it isn't. So like, for example,
it's gonna be a rough one for you, Pete.
Go.
Like no disrespect to you, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, we love you. And this is why sometimes we pre-record. I'm just saying.
There we go. But like, no disrespect to you, gentlemen, when I say this. But based on how you are currently presenting, based on our history, I did not ask for your pronouns. And I don't think it is like a mandatory thing in the context of this moment for me to ask for your pronouns. But like in that respect, like it's because also there's this foundational level of we all respect each other, you know, and we're coming from a place of respect in this conversation. Right. And so like there's some security where like maybe one of you have made some like vocal transitions and you want to be identified in a different way, and I don't know that, you know. Right. And yet I moved forward without asking, and right. I think that as long as I'm coming from a place of love, like I shouldn't be cast into the pit of shame if one of you have made a decision, you know. Right. And moreover, like I want to facilitate, like in coming from that openness, that place of love, you to be able to say, hey, by the way, I'm kind of exploring they them pronouns right now, and me to be like, oh, word, my bad. And for that to be the conversation that we are having right. on the left about how to be tolerant, about how to navigate these spaces. Because right now I feel like so often the loudest moments are moments in which, again, like let's say we're in this space here and, you know, I instead insist on us going over our pronouns in a militant fashion, even though we all explicitly are he, him, and we identify as such. There's no one in the room this is recorded, this is open, so I know that it's not no one in the room in this moment, but like in a context of a closed conversation, there's no one in the room, and yet there is a lot of fanfare made around and attention placed on these things that actually like these identities that are getting in the way of actual conversation, you know, and getting in the way of how I see myself, honestly, because I am, at least I believe I am, and plenty of other people are a lot more fluid than any definitions and any sort of restrictive identities. And the way in which we saw a lot of, so it's like, again, it's brought us to a really good spot. So like, I feel like in the context of where we are with identity politics, like if it were not for identity politics, we would not have the Marriage Equality Act. If it right. were not for identity politics, we would not have certain aspects of feminism today, you know, just straight up. If we did not go like, hey, wait, sorry, stop. These people are actually treated different. You know, these people actually like the whole way our government treats them, that, you know, like every aspect of them is different, like the way in which we interact with it. We need to acknowledge when we do that. However, the summation of why we're doing that, we're saying, hey, these people are treated different. We need to remember that the reason why we're saying that is, for the second half of the sentence is, but we want them all to be treated just like us. You know, like we want everyone to be together. We want equality. We want universality. We want a world in which those little things that prejudiced people are using to put these people in boxes, we want those things not to be protected, just not to even exist. Like right. we don't want to have infrastructure to protect trans people. Like that infrastructure just unfortunately has to exist in the society right. that we live in, because people target them, you know? Right. And so like I feel, again, if you're not coming from a place of love and acceptance and openness, you forget that like the end goal is to have everyone in the pot together, you know? Right. And not to have everyone getting their own specified slice of the pie. Right. You know, like we shouldn't be fighting over slices of the pie, you know, that's not, and that's and that framing of it helps sort of conservative ideology, because that's how they frame everything. Identity right. politics is the ideology of conservatives. You are who you are. Right. You know, like that, and like that's not what I believe in, you know.
And obviously, first of all, thank you for sharing all of that, because you know nowadays it really does takes courage. So I want to give you your flowers for that, and you know, to understand how actually awesome that is. And really, you know, a lot of it comes down to, even in these aspects, and I love how you say, yes, it's 100% gender politics is gender identity is all coming a conservative aspect. It is to further help a divide aspect, because divided we can be conquered. You know, if we can maintain to fight amongst ourselves and not come from that place of love, and you know, that love is a universal love. That love is known as an agape love, which is supposed to be 100% unconditional, you know. And in America in particular, we are extremely bad with conditionality. I mean, you can watch 1.5 million different shows and see that, you know, if the kid does the right thing this particular way, then they get that extra hug from the parent. And that becomes the reality in which we live. You know, because those are the structures in which we see, you know, the pardon my French, idiot box that has raised these generations upon, you know, is now we are sitting at the root of it, you know, where we had those opportunities in like the 70s, where people like me were seeing these incredible stories like Good Times, you know, or the Jeffersons and stuff like that, and being exposed to a culture that we weren't seeing, living in the suburbanness of you know, middle of Long Island, New York, you know. So you were able to be exposed to a little bit more of those different things, and then even seeing them take on those huge issues, you know. You know, when the word was first said on the Jeffersons, oh my gosh, like the whole world, you know, was shattered and brought to their knees, you know. And we're starting to see more of this. I think what you're trying to get at is we need to continue to evolve.
Right.
We cannot stay stuck here in no way. And for everybody who's, you know, trying to take out that red pen and be mad at us, you know, please hold on that pen for a second, because first of all, y'all know me. I am the loudest I am as loud as it's going to be, and I'll fight to my last dying breath for everyone's right friend. And that's just the way it goes.
Right.
You
And
know?
that's where, in that respect, like, I just, the way in which identity politics is currently working is in packages. So, like, and that's just not how people work. So, for example, a simple one is, if I am pro-vaccine, I am also pro-choice. I am also like pro-feminism. I'm anti-America. Like, you know, like it's this full package just by me being pro-vaccine. And like that kind of packaging just doesn't even begin to represent people. Like that's just not actually, like that's just not how plenty of people are. Plenty of people are all over the place in terms of how their identity works, and like what are the reasons why they believe in this one thing and don't believe in this other thing. And I feel like yeah, the climate of today has made it so yeah, people feel like they either need to adhere to the whole dogma of one ideology or be quiet, you know?
Right.
And that's I don't think we've ever been that, like, people talk about how polarized we are right now. And I think, yeah, part of it has to do with we're not actually given the option of being mixed between these different sides, you know? Right. And so we can't have rational conversations about them. Yeah, it's so like a lot of the people who go to Goodwill are generally apolitical and conservative. And so it's fascinating to see sort of, in particular, like not only their disdain for the media, but their disdain for even the conversation around it, because it immediately devolves into this virtue signaling of like, what do you know that puts you in this camp? And so like, you know, the fact and similarly on people are also disdainful of the person on the far right who's like, yeah, again, what anti-liberal zingers talking points of Tucker Carlson's can I like spit out one after the other? You know, and people are equally sick of that. You know, it's not like that is how I don't think that people see that as the solution, you know, of cynicism towards it or something like that. Yeah. Anyways.
No, it's absolutely awesome. I'm so glad we were able to jump down that rabbit hole, because it's important. You know, I talk about it a lot, and I'm sure I've talked about it on the show before. You know, I try to look at people and look at them actually more from the original point of hurt. Because if you can find that original point of hurt, and usually a lot of these feelings that they have, you know, and whether it be, you know, with certain communities not being okay with the vaccine because of Tuskegee. Tuskegee was a real thing. It was a really horrible thing that happened. And we should be a little bit concerned about that, because it can happen again. I understand that. But now if I'm looking at it through that scope, if I'm looking at it through the scope of someone who, you know, had ties to Tuskegee, now at least the decision makes more sense. You know, I had somebody staying with me for a conference who had severe Islamophobia. And, you know, we would go back and we would debate, you know, late at night, you know, very civilly, you know, to try to figure out what's going on here. Because, I mean, people who know me, I walk around with the Inshallah hat on, you know, because again, everyone is everyone to me. And I'm going to, if we're, you know, I love humans, right? So, you know, here he is, we're sitting at my kitchen table, and then he tells me that he taught math in Afghanistan during the war. And the insurgents blew up the school he was in, and he had to hide under his desk. You know, so he's holding that trauma. And once I understood that, you know, that pain, that hatred and that fear came from a point of pain and trauma, I had more of an understanding, and we were able to have a much better conversation. And I hope that he grew, and I hope that he, you know, sees another point in the thing, but I know that I grew. I know that I can now look and go, okay, it's not just because this person is, you know, not necessarily the cheeks, but the center. You know, it has a lot more to do with, you know, the person actually having a moment of pure fear. You know, there's a lot of people who will come out for like homophobia and transphobia and stuff like that, that might have, you know, put on mom's heels at 5 and got the snot beat out of them. You know, and we need to take a look and really try to get to know the human on the other side of both aspects of, you know, the whole point. And I think what you've been talking about a lot is the community aspect. And, you know, the more that either side can get us divided, the less we understand the importance of community. And, you know, commercialism is very big into individual, you know, being an individual that buys what everyone else buys, but you're still being an individual. You know what I mean? Instead of being that community that, you know, hey, there came a point in time, you know, growing up that if you didn't have that good shirt and tie, you went to your neighbor and you got that good, you know, you borrowed that good shirt and tie because you needed that job, and that neighbor was there for you. And I think, you know, the next evolution needs to be that communal evolution, you know, and you know, go ahead, brother.
Oh yeah. Well, so just, in that respect of, where are we now? Where are we moving? You know, like you said before, what from the past can we polish, make new, and put into the future, you know? So, in that respect, there are certain elements. So without getting too much into the weeds,
we there, sir.
I can only speak to the left in regard to like who my comrades are, in regard to truly who I'm coalition building with on a personal level. And so I don't want to project onto the right. in that respect, the left has not, in the 20th century, like, did not manage to really successfully have any violent revolutions, you know, in respect to in the United States, the leftists who talked about sort of empowering through violent means died, and the movements died with them. And that was all wrong. They were righteous, like, men and women, all of them. But in terms of the truth of that, that means that the goal cannot be attained simply through violence. And I would argue that, like, one of the biggest failures of violent resistance is that violent resistance needs to be organized in a top-down kind of way.
Organized just like this show on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, and my partner in crime with the nice Shane Penguin hat. His name is Easy Blues, Nate Blair. I hope I didn't lose your train of thought. Continue, my friend.
No, not at all. So,
smooth.
But, like, in terms of violence, and violent resistance, you need a level of organization that can be destroyed. The thing about so that is something that we can learn from the 20th century, is that in the context of having a more powerful, dominant capitalist force, the idea of violent resistance, more or less, I would argue even that capitalist forces thrive on violent resistance, because it allows a vent of anger. It allows steam to come off the lid in certain ways that keeps actual change from happening. And I would say that another thing that we can learn is that coming from a place of radical love, and, like, I'm not talking about, holding hands with your enemy radical love. I'm talking about putting your life on the line because you love one another, putting your life on the line because everybody deserves everything. That is a decentralized kind of power that doesn't need a leader. It doesn't need someone to tell you how to act it out, and so in that respect, like, the death of the leaders of the freedom movement that was about radical love, like, they achieved their goals even with the deaths of the leaders. And I would say it's interesting because the people who inherited that will from those leaders, i.e. Al Sharpton, i.e. Jesse Jackson, look at them now and ask yourself, what deal did they cut to stay alive?
I don't disagree with you there.
Because their life might be, extremely valuable to them. I'm not going to say that it shouldn't be. If you were in a room with an FBI agent and he had, like, a gun with your fingerprints on it, like, up to your head, being like, so are you going to play ball? Like, you might play ball. But I think it's very fascinating, again, drawing back to the death of the Black Power movement, is that between 1988 and 2004, you have the face of the movement being Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton. And I feel like they completely compromised the idea of radical love. They're just Black capitalists, and they just sort of bought the selling out to the highest bidder. And again, maybe in exchange for their life. So, like, I'm not going to throw a stone there. But ask yourself, because those were the leaders of an extremely powerful movement, and it was a multiracial movement. Anyways.
So This is an incredible conversation. I'm so. There's one thing I want to kind of throw a caveat on there, just to spin it a little bit different too. I do feel that the 24-hour news cycle really hurt things quickly, because, and also the celebrity culture really destroyed things, because, and I've said it before, in the 60s, you had heroes, in every, every race, there you had your heroes. You had MLK. Who do you have now? We had John Lennon. Who do we have now? And a lot of these people, because of that 24-hour news cycle, they really get dragged across those coals. And, some of them being human, them making the, very human mistakes, then kind of declassifies them from making a difference. It happened with Senator John Edwards. I want to say Edwards. It's like an S. Well, John Edwards Howard is Dean. Yeah.
Howard Dean with the
Howard Dean.
Greek. They literally turned the volume up on him when the news channels turned the volume up on it to make it sound more dramatic than it was. The swift boating of Jonathan of John Kerry. But so I appreciate media, and I don't think that there is a cabal of people who make decisions for the world. I just think that the 1% or the ruling class comes together only, they're mostly competitors, but they come together when the lower classes are rising up. That's when they're like, okay, we're on the same team, let's take care of this, and then we can go back to competing about who has a larger yacht,
Exactly.
And or portfolio or whatever. And so I'm not. Capitalism has been really interesting in it. It's this beautiful machine that has so many moving parts that accelerate all the other moving parts. And so it's like the 24-hour news cycle has definitely helped shorten people's attention span, so that within 24 hours, something that was extremely important and relevant to your life is now the past, even though it might literally still be happening right now. It's just not in the news. So obviously it doesn't matter, and so there's certain ways in which that is the truth. There's certain ways in which the people who control the media, just by not covering something, control the narrative about something. For example, there are plenty of climate change activists, even right now, who are like crazy, protesting. Oh no, where'd it go?
Hey, we still got you here. Something happened with the whole Wi-Fi gods, but go right ahead and continue, man. Let's go on.
Who are protesting because we're not doing enough to fight climate change, but don't see a single headline about any climate change protesters. People are actively trying to protest the vaccine in the way that it's being rolled out, in that we haven't given any to foreign nations. We haven't released the copyrights on the vaccine so that foreign nations can produce it. And we don't pay attention to that because it's not in our 24-hour news cycle,
Well, unfortunately, what is in our 24-hour news cycle?
Nate, I want to pay attention to you. We only got about 2 minutes left. This is the time of the broadcast where you got your Instagram information, the rest of your social media information, and also stuff you're planning for your business with your clothes, and talk a little bit more about your cider, my friend. Go right ahead.
All right. So Elm Thrifted is my Instagram for my Thrifted Clothes account. Also, I do updates on my personal, which is Nate Blair himself, at Instagram. And then in terms of cider, I would totally, this coming fall, we'll be doing cider events. So I'll roll up with my cider press.
Because it's a magic number.
And apples, and then I can show people how to make hard cider. And then once we, make hard cider, you let it sit, and you'll have yourself some hard cider. So I'll be doing that this fall. So that would start in like August.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice. Nate, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for being with us again on Behind the Brand. Hope to have you on again. We needed to have you as a reoccurring.
Yeah.
I love talking with you, man. And one of these days, we're just gonna just sit down and talk on the green and just have witnesses around. It'd be fantastic.
That would be sick. I'd be down.
So
yeah, I've been thinking recently. I'm like, I've been telling my girlfriend, I'm like, I've been thinking about getting a rolling speaker and just, stepping up to the green and speaking. And my girlfriend's like, no. Do not be content with the speaker on the corner. Like, that's a guy. And no, don't be that guy. But I'm getting closer and closer.
what we could do, we'll get a chessboard.
We're going to have that as a teaser for the next time you get on. Tell us more about that speaker on WNHHLP 103.5 FM New Haven. Myself, Prestige, Easy Blues, and this has been Behind the Brand.
Wondering what to write about, trying to figure out what it's all about. Existentialist, am I worth anything or just discount? I don't know. Spending time all alone, sending my songs to the phone, dreaming of a better home while focused on trying to hone this craft, witchcraft. I hope the brujas let this last.
I don't know if the earth is painted blue. I don't know if that's really you. I wanna go outside. I wanna go outside.
So many folks I've had to ghost, negative ones the most. The seconds wasted, never returned. I'm spaceship dreaming of landing home. I'm not alone.